At 20 to 3 in the morning, at a truck stop off the interstate, a 13-year-old boy was sitting on the curb by the ice machine. In the 40 minutes he'd been there, about 30 people walked past him. Nobody did anything. And that isn't cruelty. There are kids at truck stops all the time, and almost every single one of them is there with a parent who's inside paying for fuel. Then a man fueling at pump 6 looked over and saw him. He did not know what was wrong. He couldn't have told you. He had been wrong about this exact thing 3 times before in his life, and every one of those times he'd felt like a fool. He made the call anyway. Stay with me all the way to the end of this one. Because the last few minutes, in 1998, and about a stranger who made that same phone call for this man's own daughter, and whose name he has never learned. Let me tell you about Ferris Nance, and let me be accurate about him. He is 58 years old, and he has driven for 31 years, and he is not a hero. He'd be irritated at the suggestion. He is not unusually brave. He is not unusually kind. He's a fairly quiet man who runs nights because the traffic's easier, who keeps to himself at counters, and who has been described by more than one person as hard to get a conversation going with. There is exactly one thing that separates Ferris Nance from most people. He makes the call. That's it. That's the whole difference. He is not a better man than the 29 other people who walked past that ice machine. He just does the one thing they don't. Here's the scene, and I want to slow down on it because everything depends on how ordinary it was. It's a normal truck stop off a normal interstate. Fuel Island lit up bright the way they always are. The store windows glowing, 4 or 5 people inside at the counter and the coffee machines. 11 or 12 trucks parked out back. Somebody's reefer running, 2:40 in the morning, and over at the corner of the building, near the ice machine, there's a kid sitting on the curb. From maybe 70 feet away, across a fuel island, at night. A kid on a curb. I'm going to keep him at that distance for this entire story, and I want you to know that's deliberate. I'm not going to walk you over there. This story is not about that boy. It's about what one man decided to do standing at a fuel pump, and that's where we're staying. Ferris had the nozzle in, and he was watching the numbers roll, the way you do, and he looked over at the building, and he looked back at the numbers, and then he looked over again. And here is what he told me went through his head, which I think is the most honest part of this whole thing. His folks are inside. This isn't my business. I've been up 19 hours. Last time I did this, I got chewed out in a parking lot. He spent about 4 minutes talking himself out of it. Now, what actually kept nagging at him wasn't dramatic. There was no scream. Nothing obvious. Nobody grabbing anybody. It was 3 small things, and none of them is clever, and every single one of them is something you would notice too. The first was that the kid didn't have a phone in his hands. A 13-year-old sitting alone anywhere for 40 minutes at 2 in the morning would be on a phone. Every one of them, everywhere, always. And he wasn't. The second was that he was watching the door, not looking around, not bored. He was watching the door of the building, steadily, the way you watch something you're worried about. And he wasn't looking at it the way a kid looks when he's waiting for his dad to come out with a Gatorade. And the third was his clothes. They weren't wrong for a truck stop. They were wrong for the weather. That's it. That's the entire body of evidence. No phone, watching the door, dressed wrong. And here is the part I want to be very clear about, because it's the whole point of this story. Ferris Nance did not know what any of that meant. He wasn't reading the situation. He wasn't some expert with a trained eye. He couldn't have told you a single thing about what was actually going on, and he was not close to sure. He said, I didn't know what was happening. I just knew it didn't look right. If you've ever seen something and thought, maybe I'm imagining it, and then said nothing, then this story is for you. Subscribe if you believe you don't have to be certain to say something. And tell me down in the comments, when was the last time you talked yourself out of speaking up? I read every single one. Now, let me tell you what Ferris Nance did not do, because this is the part that matters most, and it's the part that almost nobody gets right. He did not go over to the kid. He didn't walk across that lot and say, hey buddy, you okay? He didn't sit down on the curb next to him. He didn't offer him a ride, or a phone, or a place to sit that was warmer. Every instinct says do that. Every movie says do that. And he'd learned over 31 years that it's wrong. Here's the reasoning, and it's worth having. If he's wrong, if that's a kid waiting on his mother, then he is now a strange man who approached a child alone at a truck stop at 3 in the morning. That's how it looks. That's how it will be described. And that helps nobody. If he's right, then he has no idea what he's walking into. He doesn't know who else is in that lot, or in the store, or watching from a cab. If there's a situation, a stranger walking up and starting a conversation can change it, fast, and not for the better. And either way, he is one tired man with no authority, no training, and no ability to actually do anything about it. So he hung up the nozzle, and he walked inside, and he told the woman behind the counter. That's the whole heroic act. He went inside and told somebody. Her name is Ruby Sane, and she's been working nights at that counter for 19 years. And Ruby did not argue with him. Not for 1 second. She didn't say, oh, that's probably somebody's kid. She didn't roll her eyes. Because truck stop staff are trained for exactly this. That's a real thing. There is actual training that goes out to fuel desks and night counters about what to notice and what to do about it. And Ruby Sane had sat through it more than once. She called the non-emergency line, and what she said on that phone is the model for how this is supposed to go. She didn't announce a conclusion. She didn't say what she thought was happening, because she didn't know. She described what she could see. A boy, roughly this age, alone by the ice machine, roughly 40 minutes. No adult has approached him, no vehicle associated with him, and it doesn't look right to the driver who reported it, or to her. Then, she and Ferris did the hardest thing in the entire story. Nothing. Ruby went back to running her register. Ferris bought a coffee he did not want, and stood near the window and drank it. Neither of them looked over there for more than a second at a time, because 2 adults staring across a parking lot at a kid is its own kind of problem. A deputy pulled in. No lights, no siren, came in slow like anybody else. Ferris Nance finished his coffee, got in his truck, and left. He did not stay to watch. He says he was not going to stand there and turn it into something to look at. Now I want to tell you about the 3 times he was wrong, because I think it's the most useful thing in this whole story. That was Ferris Nance's 4th call in 31 years. The first 3 were all wrong. In 2004, it was a girl outside a truck stop in the early evening. He called. She was waiting on her mother, who was in the shower. The mother came out and found a deputy talking to her daughter, and she was, his word, furious. She came and found Ferris in the lot and told him exactly what she thought of a man who calls the law on a child for existing. In 2013, it was 2 brothers sitting on a curb. Their dad was 30 feet away, on the other side of a trailer, checking his straps. He'd been gone about 4 minutes. In 2019, it was a teenage boy who was completely fine and just extremely angry at his family and wanted to sit outside. 3 times. 3 times he was wrong, and every one of them felt terrible. And one of them got him asked to leave a property. And this is what he said about that. Being wrong 3 times is the price. You pay it, because the other way of doing it is you're right 1 time, and you didn't say anything, and you don't sleep again. He also said something I've thought about a lot since. Nobody ever tells you about the ones where you were wrong. They just tell you the one where you were right. And then it sounds like I've got some kind of gift. I don't. I'm wrong most of the time. I call anyway. Now let me tell you about 1998. Ferris Nance's daughter is named Robin. In the spring of 1998, she was 16 years old, and she left. It's the ordinary, terrible version. A 16-year-old and a bad stretch, and a decision made at that age when you are absolutely certain and absolutely wrong. I'm not going to try to describe those 4 days for Ferris and his wife Colleen because I can't, and because everybody watching who has kids already knows. She was found on the 4th day, 300 miles from home. She was found because somebody made a phone call. A stranger, Somewhere in a place Ferris has never been, somebody saw a 16-year-old girl and thought, that doesn't look right, and did not know for sure, and could not have proved a single thing, and they called. Colleen spent years trying to find out who it was. The report said, anonymous caller. That was it. There was nothing else in it. They never found out. 28 years later, they still don't know. Robin Nance is 44 now. She's got 2 kids of her own, and she's fine. And she has been fine for a very long time. And her father has spent 28 years unable to thank a person whose name does not exist anywhere. That's why he calls. He said, somebody made that call for me when I needed it, and I never got to say thank you. So I make the call. That's not bravery. I'm paying a bill. The boy at Pump 6 was 13, and his name was Bram. He was all right. I want to say that plainly and early, because it's the thing that matters. He'd left home 2 days earlier, and he'd been traveling since. And the reason he was sitting on that curb at 20 to 3 in the morning is that he did not have anywhere to be. And that is everything I'm going to tell you about it. What was going on in that house is his business and his family's. And it is not mine, and it is not ours. And this story does not need it. The deputy took him to his aunt in another state. He lives there now. That's what I know. Ferris Nance never met him. Not once, not that night, not since. He didn't ask for a follow-up. He didn't want one. He found out the boy's name 3 weeks later because he stopped at that truck stop again, and Ruby told him. And that is the entire extent of it. He does not think he did anything, and he says so, and he means it. Ruby Sane said something to me that I'll leave you with, because she's the one who's been at that counter for 19 years. She said, people think we don't see anything out here. We see everything. Seeing it isn't the problem. The problem is somebody has to come tell me, because she's behind a counter. She can't see the whole lot. Ferris Nance was standing out in the middle of it. That's all he was. He was the pair of eyes she didn't have. About 30 people went past that ice machine that night. Some of them probably felt something. Most of them probably didn't think about it at all. And that's not a crime. And I'd probably have been one of them. And one man, fueling at Pump 6, saw something he didn't understand and couldn't prove and had been wrong about 3 times before. And he walked inside and said to a woman behind a register, I think something's not. Right out there. That's it. That's the whole thing. You don't have to be sure. You don't have to be brave, and you don't have to know what you're looking at. And you don't have to be right. He wasn't. 3 times out of 4. You just have to go tell somebody. Somebody 300 miles away made that call for you, Ferris. Nobody ever learned their name. And now nobody's going to learn yours.